Hello, I'm Don Kloss for Explore Central Ohio Nature. It is Saturday, November 5th, about 2:30 in the afternoon, and I am at a spot that I felt would be a priority to get a virtual hike done on. This is Shafer Woods, which is very near to Blendon Woods Metro Park. This piece of land is actually owned by Metro Parks. It was willed to them about 2 years ago when a gentleman named Shafer passed away. And it's an unusual piece of property, as you will see. It is 68 degrees today and very windy. The winds are averaging about 15 to 20 miles an hour. We're supposed to have some rain later in the day. It is mostly cloudy, threatening rain. We are supposed to have some rain early this evening. And just to show you where we are at, Shafer Woods is behind me. And if I spin around, you will see on the opposite side of the street here, we have apartment buildings on the other side of the street. The way you get here is from 270. You get off on the 161 to New Albany exit. From there you get on to Little Turtle Way. And from there, instead of making a right to go to Blendon Woods, you make a left and follow Little Turtle Way right on around, and you'll loop through some apartment building developments, and you will arrive at this spot. And this is a spot that's really not well known, and I believe Metro Parks probably wants to keep it a secret. I discovered it 2 years ago when there was an article written about it in Ravinia, which is the publication that's put out by Friends of the Ravines. They had done an article about it, and I came out here. There were a number of things online about it that were available. They have all since been taken off. Everything that Metro Parks had published online about it had been removed. The only thing that you can find about it at all is on the Metro Parks webpage. There is a line under future development on their webpage that just simply says that they have a property that they intend on keeping wild and undeveloped that is being managed by the Blendon Woods Metro Park staff. It doesn't even mention the name of it, Shafer Woods. So it seems like they want to keep it a secret, and almost like they do not want people to come here. That's just my take on it. So we are going to go ahead and take a walk. This is a 90-acre property. It has 8 ravines on it that run east-west, actually. And the property ends where it backs up at Big Walnut Creek. And there's a fairly substantial bluff there where it overlooks the creek. And on the other side of the creek is a housing development. So we're going to go ahead and take a hike here, and I will show you and explain to you what is so unusual about this property. The first thing about this property is in front of it there is this grass area, which is kept mowed fairly short. And in between it and where the forest actually starts, there is an area here that has some understory, some brush. This is the only place that you will find it. And the interesting thing is, and this is what really makes this piece of land unusual, is that there is absolutely nothing in the way of invasive plants here. Once we get into the woods itself, you will see that there is literally no understory to this forest. And as we walk in to the forest, you can see that there's no understory at all. Not a whole lot in the way of saplings, not much in the way of pioneer trees, but no understory at all. And there's a reason for this, which I will explain in a little bit. And you can see already we've barely stepped in, and we have come to the first 2 of the 8 ravines that are here, some of which are fairly deep. And there is a fair amount of down timber here, most of it around the ravines. One thing I will point out too is we have something here that I spoke about in our program on the life of the forest floor, the ecology of the forest floors, and that is we have, with the lack of understory here today, a prime example of what is called fire loading. Because we don't have the understory, there is, as you can see here under my foot, a very thick layer of dried leaves, and under that, a fairly substantial layer of detritus that is dry, dried pieces of twigs, dried pieces of acorns, and so on. So there's an awful lot of fuel here. Dry fuel. We haven't had anything to speak of in the way of substantial rain for a couple months. So all this stuff is very dry. And as I mentioned, it's very windy today. And there are a lot of downed trees that are very dry. It wouldn't take much for us to have one heck of a forest fire in here today. Now, even though it's dry here, there is quite a bit of moss on down pieces of timber on the lower portions of tree trunks. And I'll point out too, we had spoken a couple of weeks ago about ecological memory. If you look at how big around most of these tree trunks are, there's really no old growth. Most of these trees are only maybe 15 to 20 years old. And that and the lack of the understory points to the fact that before this land was the way we see it today, this had been farmed. And it's a matter of fact that the prior owner of this land that had willed it to Metro Parks, Mr. Shafer, who was, among other things, a trustee in this township here in Worthington, he was a lifelong farmer. So more than likely this land had been farmed prior to it being in the condition we see today. Now this is something unusual. This was not here when I was here in early summer. I'm past that second ravine And here is an area that is probably 40 yards wide by about maybe 30 yards long, that is full of common pawpaw saplings. And they are about to lose their leaves. They've gone to mostly pale yellow color, but it's just this one spot that these are in. So very unusual for in here. Before I got it close to it, I thought it might have been a tree that still had its leaves that had dropped that was large, but it's the saplings. And we're going to continue moving along. And down here is another smaller patch of the pawpaw saplings. But some of these are a lot taller. A few of them are actually up to about 10 feet tall, 3 or 4 of them. I thought this was unusual. There's a piece of a downed tree limb here, and on this end of it, it has on it this fungi, white maize polypore. But on the other end, we have mossy polypore, the green. And then over this way, a very interesting widowmaker. Even the camera up here. We've got most of the tree here. Been here a while because the root base is mostly here, although the roots themselves are gone. But as you can see, it's quite a leaner. It's leaning up against 2 smaller oaks. And that thing, when it comes down, is going to make quite a noise. It's not a huge tree, but you probably couldn't get your hands all the way around it. And it's got a lot of holes in the trunk all the way around from where woodpeckers have been at it. So we'll keep moving here. Actually, I'm going to head over this way. And we go past that second bunch of pawpaws. With this wind, a lot of these trees are dropping small dead stems and branches, or ones that aren't dead but just have weak joints. This thick carpet of leaves, and as dry as they are, there's no way a person or an animal could walk through here and not be heard for a long ways off. Here's a shagbark hickory, a young one. It's been marked for some reason, but I don't know why, because it is certainly looking very healthy. It's nice and tall, probably about 20 feet. We're passing another shagbark, and I'm walking to the left of it because it's got a halfway decent lean to it. With this wind, I don't want to take any chances. That's my favorite tree, the shagbark. And now you can see over here through the trees, that's the west end of the housing development, and although you can't see it, Big Walnut Creek is in between those woods and those houses. And we will very soon be coming upon the next ravine. Actually, next couple of ravines are very close together. And this next one is rather deep. And these are all steep as well. Hopefully you can hear me because the wind is really roaring. So you can get an idea of the depth of this ravine and how they all meander southwest to northeast. Okay, I'm at the top of that ravine. That one was a hard one to get up. Very steep one. Wind's died down a little bit. We're gonna continue on towards the Big Walnut. And again, to continue to see really no understory. No understory plants. Just a handful of saplings here and there. This is so unusual for anywhere in Ohio. And it's great to see. And it makes traveling through these woods very easy. No need for the machete here. One thing I will point out on this oak that I am standing in front of, it has these knobs on it that are called burls. And there's another one back there that has several of them. And then there's a pioneer tree back there that has 3 of them near its base. These are something I just started reading about. They are a natural occurrence. And if you've ever seen burl bowls for sale, they are bowls that have been carved from these burls that have been removed from trees. Here is another steep ravine, and this is actually a spot where, I don't know how well you can see this, where 2 of them come together. The 2 are not so steep, but right after this point where they come together, it cuts pretty deep after that. Come around this way, around this beach, so you can see it. It gets pretty deep as it goes around this way. And it's hard to see with all the leaves on the ground, but a lot of these deeper ravines have boulders exposed. Some of them are erratics, some not. We are getting close to the bluff now, and I will mention one thing. If you come here after we've had rain, especially if we've had a lot of rain, it would be a very good idea, especially with the amount of sticks and pieces of limbs that are hidden under the leaves. Bring a walking stick. That, and something you may not think of, if you have yak tracks, it would be a good idea to wear those as well. They're not just good for snow and ice. They work really well in muddy conditions also. They're a good investment, and they really are a good thing to use in muddy conditions. And it does get pretty muddy here, especially in the ravines. I am down in the last ravine before we get to the bluff. This is a shorter one, but it's still fairly steep, and I have to believe that the water really rushes through this one when you have a good amount of water coming through. And this is why I say this. See if I can get the camera to turn around. Up just past those pieces of wood that are going across, right here you've got a fairly sizable boulder, and then the level of the ground drops. And here a little ways past that, we've got another good-sized boulder which appears to be an erratic, and a couple of smaller boulders there right past it. So I gotta believe you get a pretty decent whitewater effect from the water coming through here. It probably really rushes as it heads on down that way. So we're up out of that last ravine, coming up on the bluff. You can see the roofs and the sides of the houses on the other side of the creek. Now you can see a bit of a path here, and up ahead it's fairly old. but looks to be very well made. Around the trunk of that tree. Looks like a tree house, but I have to believe it's probably, from the way it is made, a hunting blind, especially for deer, since this is a prime deer area, especially with all the hickory and oak trees here. Might have belonged to the farmer that owned this property. I will mention there were a couple of very quickly constructed shacks on this property, a little farther back away from the creek. There were some homeless people living in these shacks, and they had been run off by Parks Management, so they are no longer around. And we will take a walk on here to the bluff, where, as you can see, down in the valley there, we've still got quite a bit of green on these young trees that are down in there. You can see the water of the creek. I'm going to zoom in there. From photos I've seen online, this is a pretty popular stretch of the Big Walnut for canoeing and kayaking. And hopefully you can get the idea. This is a pretty steep bluff. The creek actually divides right here. There's this island here that's maybe 90, 100 yards. It's very shallow on this side and deeper on the other side. It ends right there. And the creek widens out some afterwards. And then you've got a bottomland right there at the bottom of the bluff to our left there. Fairly sizable. And even though you've got that island there, on the opposite side of the island, the water runs a little faster, but coming past the island, the water's deeper and it slows down. I'm going to come right out here to the edge so you can get an idea how steep this bluff is. The three trees you're seeing there at the right of the camera, they're about halfway down the bluff. As you can see how windy it is from the way these trees are blowing. And then even though you've got a housing development there, directly across the creek there's a fairly sizable plot of land. It's like about half of it is mowed and the rest of it is kept wild. And off to our right here, we've got a ravine, very steep ravine that runs right down to the creek. Cuts very deep, right down to the soil. I will end our virtual hike of Shafer Woods right here with Big Walnut Creek behind me. I hope that you will take the opportunity to come out here and visit this place, enjoy the natural beauty of it, and enjoy what it has to offer. I'm your host, Don Claus. Until next time, come out and enjoy the wild and explore with Central Ohio nature.